getting ready for work, don't worry, we got you covered.
This is Richmond's Morning News with Rich Herrera on News Radio WRVA.
All right, so what's the real deal about the Founding Fathers? Were they 100% we have a separation of church and state? The two shall not be next to each other. Or was religion really one of the pillars, one of the cornerstones that makes democracy work? Were there how pious, how faithful were the Founding Fathers? A lot of people talk about the agnostic or the atheist or those that believed in a higher divinity but didn't believe in an actual organized religion. When they get Thomas Jefferson, some of the other Founding Fathers. That's a very interesting question to ask as we get to our 250th birthday. Man that's written about it is a local professor from the University of Richmond. His name is Dr. Raymond Roberts, and he's joining us right now. He's going to talk about his new book that he has out, and it's my pleasure to welcome him to the program. The book is called A Democratic and Republican Faith, How the Forgotten Founding Father John Witherspoon Influenced the Formation of Our American Democracy. Professor, thank you so much for taking time for us this morning.
Thank you for having me on this morning. It's just a pleasure to be with you.
Well, let's get down to brass tacks. Whenever people talk about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, you'll always hear inevitably in the first 5 minutes of conversation, we have a separation of church and state, and church shall not impinge upon anything in the state. Firewall, period, end of story. How would you respond?
Well, I think, people like John Witherspoon, was a person who believed that religion should not be established. He taught James Madison. Madison stayed an extra year at Princeton. It was Princeton now. It was the College of New Jersey at the time. Madison spent an extra year studying Hebrew with Witherspoon, and very much reflects Witherspoon's understanding of the relationship between church and state. And then we see it in the First Amendment: Congress shall establish no law, no religion, and free exercise of religion. And then Witherspoon, we see his influence on the church and the founding of the Presbyterian Church in 1789. The first thing that they say is God alone is the Lord of the conscience and has left it free from the commands of men. That, so freedom of the conscience, so that you follow God, is like the religious reason for separation of church and state. But then, and the response they say to it is that government should treat all religious bodies the same.
Okay,
and
so let me jump in here with you. The book that you wrote, give me just the elevator pitch, 30 seconds about the book, and then then there's some rabbit holes I want to go down with you. Well,
the book is the book looks at the decline in America's democratic culture. That is, we believe in things like separation of powers, for example. But underneath the separation of powers is, to support that, people have an understanding that people are sinners. They're prone to corruption. You can't trust them if you give them too much power. And that's what Madison argues in Federalist Number 51, that you can't give anybody too much power. And so that would be an example where we're unsure what Madison thought later in life. He didn't really attend church. He's one of the people who, people look at as kind of a more secular founder, along with Jefferson, right?
Right.
But the idea that human beings are sinners floated in the culture. And it was obviously promulgated by people like Witherspoon, who was the only clergyman to sign the Declaration of Independence, promulgated by Orthodox Christians. But then it's in the culture that we can't give anybody too much power.
Right. Power corrupts absolute. Power corrupts absolute. So when you hear people, we have this conversation, I think we confuse freedom from religion with freedom of religion. When I look at this, and here's what I've always thought: we'll never have a national church because we won't make everyone have the same faith. But that doesn't mean that we don't have faith in America. You have to have faith, and I think a lot of the founding fathers, I think Thomas Paine, a lot of those talked about, this works if you have people of high moral character and have a faith to know the difference between right and wrong.
Well, and John Adams said our Constitution is made for a moral and religious people. And then the question is, what did he mean by religious? Well, Adams himself was kind of shifting away from Orthodox Christian faith because the church he's a part of really kind of becomes Unitarian, right? So he later writes to the Barbary pirates that we're not a Christian nation, right? So but he writes this. And what do they mean by that? Well, what I think what they meant by that is that that people understand they have a worldview, a thick worldview that leads them to support the thinner things like separation of powers, rule of law, equality before the law, sovereignty of the people, those kinds of ideas. I mean, you don't have to be a Christian to support those. Right? You can be Jewish, you can be Catholic. Catholics are Christians. You can be something else and support those things. But at the time of the founding, a lot of the people, like Witherspoon, who has an inordinate influence on the Constitution and the founding because he's training all these people at Princeton, and he's never talked about, unfortunately. But people like Witherspoon, has an understanding that's out of a thick understanding. But then you have people like Thomas Jefferson, who pens the Declaration of Independence. We find these truths to be self-evident. I think the self-evident comes from Franklin, as I understand it. So self-evident. There's an idea of natural law that's in the Christian theological tradition.
Okay.
That people can grasp right and wrong. They don't have to have the Ten Commandments to tell them. And that's the natural law tradition.
Is it just a basic understanding of Judeo-Christian morals that, okay, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not lie, things like that you will need in order to have this more perfect union that they were looking for?
Yeah, they thought like the second half of the Ten Commandments, right? That those are the things that the government's going to enforce, right? You shouldn't steal, you shouldn't kill. There's perjury if you bear false witness.
Do I have to have morality for that?
Well, I think those are morality. That is morality.
Sure. So as I look at what's going on, like in New York City right now, they're having all these primaries today, and there are a lot of Democratic socialists out there that are saying, let's abolish prisons. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it's almost like they're so agnostic or atheist that they don't believe in any kind of morality.
Well, and you can't have a society without prisons. I'm sorry. You've got to have a criminal justice system. And you can have a less just one, but you need to have a criminal justice system.
Okay, wait a second. This is a simple question. And it might be a cloud question, but let's answer it, because there's a lot of people out there like, well, this whole criminal justice system, why can't you have a civil society without prisons or laws or punishment for those that break the laws of the system? Because people are sinners. And so even though they may know right from wrong, doesn't mean they're going to do it without consequences. And not only that, the idea, the intuitive sort of like find these truths self-evident, intuitive idea of natural law. We all kind of have a sense of right and wrong. We have a moral sense. That is not enough to get you to a just society. So you have people who will justify things that are unjustifiable and cause harm. So you've got to have government step in and take, to keep order. You got to have prisons. Yeah, the book is out right now. How's the response been? Because this is interesting, because you have a lot of people that go, "Hey, separation of church and state," and I understand that. I'm Catholic, but I don't. I think the American president should have some morality, but I don't think he should be to the dogma of the Catholic Church, because not all of us are Catholic, and I certainly don't think he needs to be under the thumb of the Pope the way that you saw rulers in Europe. But I still want to have a government with some type of morality, and I think that is founded in religion. I think you get good thick reasons from Catholic social teaching to do right and wrong, and without those good thick reasons, Charles Taylor is a philosopher. He says you need strong sources to do difficult things. You need a good reason to do something that's hard. And what religion can provide are those good reasons
to do hard things. And the founders talked a lot about Republican virtue. It's something we hardly ever think about and talk about today. It's just been lost in our culture. And I think we kind of assumed that as long as you supported separation of powers and rule of law and that sort of thing, that's all you needed. But I don't think I'm a Presbyterian pastor. I don't think that's enough. I think you've got to have some other good reasons for taking care of people. Francis Fukuyama is a philosopher, wrote The End of History, and he says that while modern societies have evolved towards democracy, we've lost sight of what constitutes human dignity, and as a consequence, we're unable to define the rights of man. And that to me is, in a nutshell, the problem. Even if you don't know why people have basic dignity, and there may be different ways to get there. In the United States, it's been out of things like people are made in the image of God.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack over here. The book is Forgotten Founding Father John Witherspoon, Influence Formation. Go ahead, please.
Actually, that's not the title.
Okay, the title is A Democratic and Faith Republic. I can't read my own writing over here. Sorry, Professor.
Okay, yeah, it's A Democratic and Republican Faith, a Public Theology for a Church and a Nation in Crisis.
Okay, good. See, you know what? I should have been a doctor because my handwriting is bad enough to be a doctor, but I wasn't that good of a student to get through my undergrad work. But I appreciate it. I need you to come back in, though, because this is something that weighs on me quite a bit. And this is what I want to talk to you about next time is, when you have different faiths, is there one thing that you could go across different faiths, Eastern faiths, Western faiths, traditional faiths, new faiths? What is that one thing that ties them all together that holds this country, that's a linchpin to hold this country morality-wise, versus what we see as an absence in some people's mind of religion, which I think is one of the things that's tearing under the underpinnings and the institutions that we have here?
Yeah, it's hard to say it's one thing. Every religious tradition is kind of particular. It has a history and people that it looks to and different ways of talking about human nature and what is the world that we live in. But at the same time, basic respect, I would say it's rooted in natural law as a Christian. Yes. And I could say a lot more about that, but I don't know how much time.
We're almost we're out of time here, but that's why I want to have you come back in the studio, because I think that would be fascinating.
It'd be fun. Fun. I'd love to do that.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Raymond Roberts joining us here on News Radio WRVA. I appreciate that. Something to think about. I mean, freedom from religion versus freedom of religion. And I think we confuse those two, because people are like, I don't want religion. Okay. Where does morality come from? Is there that if you don't want organized religion, is there natural law, which says, we've got unalienable rights given by our creator, life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. Something to think about as we get closer to 250. Okay. Let me tell you, everybody, that I keep giving you this reminder, but we're just about at zero barrier, meaning you have just a little bit of time before we're really going to start seeing inflation when it comes to the price of roofing. Shingles are going up. The material to re-roof your house is going up. And if you don't act now, you're not going to be able to save money. In fact, it's going to cost you more money. Call right now to A+ Roofing. Go online, aplusroofing.com, or call them 804-752-0008, 804-752-0008. Get an estimate. Lock in that price right now. Get that free estimate. Lock in that price before it's too late. If you wait, you're going to pay more across the board. It's not just A+ Roofing. It's the entire industry. They're seeing a spike in the cost of roofing materials. Call them right now, 804-752-0008. Go online to aplusroofing.com.
Hey, it's Elliot for Pearson Mazda. Get amazing rates on Pearson Mazda 2026 models when you buy or lease. This month, lease the 2026 CX-50 crossover